So in this video I want to cover about the driving in Canada. Before you start driving in Canada, you have to get a valid driver's license, for which you have to pass a drive test. There are different levels of licenses which are there in Canada. So the first one, or the basic level, is the G1 or the learner's license, in which you have to get this license. You have to first write a written examination, where you would be assessed on the you have to first go through the rule. So there is a rule book which you have to go through, and you have to go and write this examination. And if you clear this examination, you would get a G1 license, which would give you an eligibility to drive a car. However, when you are driving a car, there should be a person sitting next to you who has a full license or a G license. So if you can't drive a car all alone if you have only G1 license. So the next class of license that you will have in Canada is called as a G2 license, which would for which you have to practice driving here. There are many driving schools which would teach you how to drive in Canada and all the rules and regulations, and they will train you for the drive test. And once you are ready, you have to give a driving examination. Usually when it is a G2 license, you will have to drive within the city limits, and they would ask you to do a 3-point turn, or park on a roadside, or do an emergency stop, or do a reverse parking, or a so these are few things that they would ask you to do in the examination. And once you do this properly, you would be eligible to get a G2 license. And with this G2 license, you would be able to drive a car on your own, and you don't need a person with a G license to be sitting next to you each time you drive a car. So once you have a G2 license, you can go for a full license, which is a G license. And usually you have to, in this examination, it's again a drive test, and you have to go for an examination where you would be driving. You would have to do all the things that you would have done for G2. Along with this, you will have to also drive in a highway, and they would assess you on that as well. And if you do well, you will get a G license. So as an immigrant, when you arrive, you can also get an international driving license, which would allow you to drive in Canada. Also, there are many countries which have a special arrangement with Canada, and people from those countries can drive in Canada without or rather, they can get a Canadian license without going through a drive test. So especially people, for example, coming from US or UK, they can just show their driving license from UK or US, and they can get a full license in Canada. In case, if for example, if you are coming if your country issues a driving extract which shows that the number of years of experience you have driving, you can get it from your home country. And with that, you would be eligible for even to go for a drive test, for a G drive test directly. But I would suggest that even though you have that, the chances of passing G test in the first attempt is quite low, unless you have driven on a left hand drive. And if not, then it is advisable to go for a G2, and then followed by that you go for a G test. So now coming on to driving on Canadian roads, most of the vehicles here in Canada are automatic transmission, so that gives you a lot of comfort while you are driving. And you have when you are driving within the city limits, you have speed limit which is around 50 kilometers an hour in each of these roads. Most of the roads have this 50 kilometers as a speed limit, but there are certain roads where you can drive at 60 or even 70 kilometers an hour. In case if you are driving in a highway, the speed limits are 90 or 100 kilometers an hour. You have to be very cautious when you are driving in a school area or a residential area. Usually in these zones, school zones or residential areas, the speed limits are lesser than 50 kilometers, and you have to strictly follow that. Also, when you are if you are driving, and in case if there is a school bus which is boarding or unboarding children, then you will have to essentially stop. I mean, the vehicles on the either side of the roads have to stop, and till the time the children's till the time the children board and unboard, you have to wait. Usually there is an indicator in the vehicle which would say that you have to stop, and it is a very very serious offense to cross a school bus which is either boarding or unboarding a student. Also, you have to essentially leave way for emergency vehicles, and if you don't follow that, you may end up in serious problem, and the fines are very high. So essentially, if you see an emergency vehicle on a road, you have to pull your vehicle to the sides, and you have to leave way. So now coming on to parking a vehicle, usually you can, if there are no special instructions on the road, you can park your vehicle on the roadside. But you have to ensure that if you are parking, there shouldn't be a fire hydrant anywhere near 3 meters where you are parking. You can't park 3 meters near any fire hydrant, it's an offense. Otherwise, if there are no special instructions, you should be able to park your vehicle on roadside. Also, if you are in a plaza, you usually will have a designated area marked, which would be marked for parking, and you have to park your vehicle only in those places. You can't park a vehicle where if it says that it's a fire route, and if you park a vehicle uh, in such a place, it's an offense again. So ensure that you always park a vehicle in a designated area. And as part of your drive test, you would be taught about parking. You can do a reverse parking or a front parking. These things would be taught to you in your driving lessons, and you will have to practice it well to clear these exams. So I think this is all I have. And one more important thing is indicators. So you will have to clearly indicate when you are making a turn or when you make a roadside stop. You have to clearly put your indicators and well in advance, and tell the vehicle coming behind that you're going to make a turn, or you're going to make a stop or you're going to do a roadside stop. So since in Canada you have to drive in cold or in the snow conditions, your car will you have to have winter tires, which is very essential to have, and as a for your safety, it is essential before the winters that you change your car tires to a winter tire, and again change back to all season tires in summer. Do remember that a all season tire is not a winter tire. A winter tire is specially designed to to allow you to drive in the snow conditions. And of course, I mean, you would learn how to drive when you go for a driving exam, and if it's a driving practice, and if you are driving in snow, the instructor would teach you how to drive in a snow. And even the rule book, MTO rule book, would have those instructions on how to drive in a snow condition. So I guess that's all for now. And with this, I think this gives you a fair idea of how the driving is in Canada. Do leave us some comments. Follow us on Instagram, and in case if you think it is nice, please do consider subscribing to our channel. Thank you and take care.